The New York Knicks are your 2026 NBA champions. And I can't believe I'm saying this as a Boston Celtics fan, but this was one of the most likable teams I have ever covered. I loved every single second of the run this New York Knicks team went on. They proved so many people wrong, including myself. I had doubts when the New York Knicks originally made moves to get Jalen Brunson, with their big three being him, RJ Barrett, and Julius Randle. I didn't see a path forward for the New York Knicks with those three players. And what they were able to transition this roster into, adding Karl Anthony Towns, OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges, Josh Hart, so many great players, is something that was really special and we will remember forever. This team was down big time and time again in the playoffs, in the finals, last year in the playoffs, but they came back so many times from 20 points down. They were down 10 points in every single game in this series, and they still found a way to fight back. And what it reminds me of is every team you ever watched Tom Brady play on, their team had this belief that they were never out of a football game. They had an opportunity to come back. We saw him down 28-3 in the Super Bowl, and his team was able to come back in those games. The New York Knicks have that same thing with Jalen Brunson on their team. They feel at all times, we have that dude. We have a man who can perform in the biggest spots, and if we can just get it close, we will win these basketball games. And that's how every single game of this series felt. All 5 games were close, and the Knicks dominated down the stretch in 4 of the 5. They executed at a high level, and I just could not be more excited for this New York Knicks team. These players, Jalen Brunson, I just got done watching, the trophy presentation, and seeing his emotions and how happy he was, what he's accomplished, as a player that was not a highly touted prospect out of college. He won titles at Villanova, but he came to the NBA, backup point guard for Luka Doncic on the Dallas Mavericks. Then he leaves there, signs, a middle-level contract. I think it was 20-something million a year to go to the New York Knicks. Have people like Becky Hammon call him out, say that you can't win a championship with him as your best player. And the way that he works, you can tell how much he works at his craft and how mentally strong he is. He's got to be one of the most mentally strong basketball players we've ever had. Down the stretch of games, you feel like he is in complete control. He had 15 points in the fourth quarter of this basketball game, finished the game with 45 points. Just an unbelievable performance. But you saw so many players getting tight down the stretch, missing free throws. Wemby was missing everything he took. The Spurs went down the court. Dylan Harper smoked a layup. They couldn't score the basketball. The Knicks went on a 15-2 run from the time it was 8 minutes left to 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter. But Jalen Brunson was still composed, scoring 15 points in the fourth quarter. Unbelievable what he was able to do in every big moment of this series. Even in games he, wasn't shooting the highest percentages, you still felt down the stretch that he would get it done. And that's why Jalen Brunson, absolutely deserves this. I could not be more happy for what he was able to accomplish. We're going to have, future videos talking about his standing in the league after what he accomplished in this playoffs. We also are going to talk about, where Wemby stands after kind of the dud he laid in the NBA Finals. And we'll talk about the Spurs a little bit at the end of this video. I'd like to get into them in more depth at a later date. I really want to focus tonight on the New York Knicks. But what I love about this team so much is that every single person contributed in their own way. OG Anunoby was so good in the NBA Finals, including hitting the game-winning tip-in Game 4. A pivotal game that if they lose, if he doesn't make that tip-in, it's 2-2 going back to San Antonio. Instead, OG Anunoby flies in, makes the putback shot in a night that he scored 33 points. He did incredible things on the defensive end of the court. Tonight he had a couple free throws down the stretch, missed a couple, but he contributed so much to this basketball team. And people were clowning when they signed him to his big contract, but he proved he was worth every penny. 2 other players that are in particular have had a lot of criticism thrown their way. Karl Anthony Towns did not have his best game tonight. He was in foul trouble for a majority of this basketball game and fouled out. But his contributions in the first few games of this series were key to the Knicks getting this lead in the series that they had. There was conversations at the beginning after games 1 and 2. Was he the MVP of the series through 2 games? What he was able to create matchup problems-wise for Victor Wembanyama, and what Cat was able to do as a former number 1 overall pick, who some people had labeled a bust. Minnesota Timberwolves traded him, got rid of him with Anthony Edwards. Anthony Edwards really could have used him in this playoff run, by the way. But he was traded for Julius Randle, doubted time and time again. And for him to come back and accomplish this in these NBA Finals was really special. And the other player that received a ton of criticism was Mikal Bridges. We know he was traded from Brooklyn, for whatever it was, 5 first-round picks. And, there's been times in the playoffs that he's been up and down. Certainly for Mikal Bridges has had some great moments and some low moments in the NBA playoffs. But the Knicks winning an NBA championship on a night that he had, 14 points? 14 points. He contributes on the defensive end of the court. Absolutely made that trade worth it. If you're able to get a championship out of a trade, it is worth it 100% of the time, in my opinion, because you broke a drought that was over 50 years old. Josh Hart contributing in so many ways, rebounding the basketball, hitting big threes, defending at a high level, getting steals. Everything that is included in winning basketball, Josh Hart contributes to. And then off the bench, you have Landry Shamet hitting big threes. Jordan Clarkson came in and had some valuable stretches, throughout this series. And then Mitchell Robinson, even with that broken hand, when Cat's, fouls out and you're going up against a 7'5", 7'4" guy in Victor Wembanyama, your big men are super important. And Mitchell Robinson giving them valuable minutes just contributed. You see this team that went 9 guys deep. Deuce McBride was good for him, at stretches. He wasn't his best in the NBA Finals, but you just look at how many guys. Jose Alvarado, I forgot to mention him, was really good in Game 4. You look at how many guys contributed to this NBA Finals, and it's why this Knicks team is so special and so likable, and a team that we'll remember for a very long time. And their coach, Mike Brown, who made the NBA Finals in 2007, got swept by the Spurs with LeBron James when he was young. Mike Brown comes back. He coaches for the Sacramento Kings. They make the playoffs for the first time in forever. For whatever reason, they decide to fire him because of some sort of, I don't know if him and De'Aaron Fox didn't get along or what. But Mike Brown gets fired. Then he comes to New York after Tom Thibodeau is fired controversially. And all offseason, there was so much conversation about the Knicks trying to poach coaches from other teams, whether that be Jason Kidd, or various other guys. And the Knicks landed on Mike Brown, who did an unbelievable job coaching this basketball team to an NBA championship. Great stuff by the New York Knicks. Congratulations to all the Knicks fans. Again, I was wrong, kind of, when I said that the big three of Jalen Brunson, RJ Barrett, and Julius Randle was not good enough. That was doubting Jalen Brunson too much. They made the moves, build around that guy, and he is that guy. He is probably the best point guard in the league, in my opinion. Best American player in the NBA, and arguably the best player in the NBA. You can say any of those things you want to say after scoring 45 in a closeout game, being the first Knick to ever score over 40 points. Let's touch briefly on the San Antonio Spurs because they have a lot of question marks going into the offseason. What I want to say, though, to start is that every great player gets humbled in the NBA playoffs. Magic Johnson was called Tragic Johnson. Michael Jordan lost for, 6 years, multiple times to the Detroit Pistons. And, if you watch The Last Dance, he had to get in the gym and work really, really hard to improve his strength, be able to get that little extra he needed to get over the top to finally win an NBA championship. We saw LeBron fail. We saw Kobe with a ton of air balls early in his career. We have seen so many great players. Larry Bird, I think, had 8 points in a finals game. We've seen so many great players be humbled, whether that be by the NBA Finals or, in Jordan's case before then. It is not a bad thing that Wemby did not play up to his standard in these finals. because I think to some degree he came into the series assuming they were going to win. Even after, even before this game tonight, he said everyone knows that we're going to win the next 3 games. And he just came in with this mindset that he's, the best player in the NBA. He's going to find a way to get it done. And he was humbled so quickly in this series, especially down the stretch of these games. He played horribly in, almost every fourth quarter. He tired down. He's not playing enough minutes. We're going to do a deeper breakdown of Wemby and where he stands in the league. I thought after beating Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, you could easily argue that he was the best player in the NBA because Jokic going out early in the playoffs, Luka didn't play, Jalen Brunson hadn't done what he just did in the NBA Finals yet. So you could easily have argued that Wemby was the best player in the NBA. After what happened in the finals, I think that becomes a lot tougher to argue. And that's okay. He will more than likely get there. He's got to work really hard in the offseason to get stronger, play more minutes in the regular season, and work on his offensive game. Because down the stretch, when they need a bucket, it's sometimes painful to watch some of the shots he puts up. His shot selection is very frustrating. The other big question mark for this team is what do you do with De'Aaron Fox? De'Aaron Fox was terrible in the NBA Finals. And the bigger part of that is, one, you're paying him so much money, but Dylan Harper was so good, arguably their best player tonight, and he's coming off the bench. You cannot continue to have Dylan Harper coming off your bench. He has to be a starter next season. He's probably, one of the best players in the NBA under 25 years old. If you were picking guys to start a team with, he'd be very high on that list. He has to be in your starting lineup. So what do you do with De'Aaron Fox? I can't imagine his trade market's going to be huge because that contract is so fat. But down the stretch, why were they continuing to go to De'Aaron Fox? When you have other options, put him on the bench. I know Mitch Johnson is a young coach, and I know it's hard to bench a guy that's making $50, $60 million a year. But you have to make the tough calls. And that's what great coaches do. They know when their players have it, and they know when they don't. Dylan Harper was the guy who was playing better in this basketball game. And Stephon Castle wasn't good tonight, but he's been way better in the series. He had a putback dunk that kind of gave them a chance at the end of this basketball game. Mitch Johnson had to make the tough call, and I don't think that he did a good enough job with that. The Spurs team started every game really hot. They dominated in the first quarter, and you could see them wear down as the game went on. And, they did the similar thing against Oklahoma City Thunder. Every single first quarter, it felt like they were really dominating, and they were just trying to hold on for the rest of the basketball game. The Spurs have to figure out all of those different issues. We will do a deeper breakdown into the Spurs. We will do a deeper breakdown into Jalen Brunson, here in the next day or two. That's all we got for you for now. Appreciate y'all watching. If you love the NBA, don't forget to subscribe. We're going to be covering NBA all offseason, free agency, trades, NBA draft, NBA history. Can't wait to talk about all of it. Appreciate y'all watching. Cyborg out.